The Emperor is a companion card in many respects to the Empress, so I would recommend having a look at the Empress video first, because a lot of what we're going to see here is in many ways a mirror image or a companion of what we've had. For example, you can see that the Emperor and Empress cards actually face each other on the Thoth deck if you are to put them together beside each other. And the Empress, she stood for the universal love, of course. She stood for the light of Kether that binds all creation into one. The Emperor, on the other hand of that, is the lord of this earth. So he's the lord of his own personal world. He rules over the material world. To be an emperor, of course, you would have to understand what you are in control of, how you would manifest things into your world, basically what you can change and what you can't change. And to be an emperor, you would have to be making choices and accepting the responsibility of what those choices would end up actually having created. And so when we look, just for simplicity's sake, at the Rider-Waite more commonly seen Emperor card, we can see that in his left hand is an orb which represents the world. This is the world of which he is the ruler over. We are the lords of the earth, so to speak. And then his other hand is the Ankh, the Egyptian symbol of the Ankh, which of course represents life. The word Ankh means life, and this symbol very much means life. And so he's absolutely ruling over the life of the world. On the Tree of Life, the Emperor is Path 18, which is known as the Path of Natural Intelligence. Natural here meaning that life force, and the life force which exists in the Tree of Life, in Yesod and Netzach. Now, quite interestingly, Netzach is said to be ruled by Venus, and if you've seen the previous video, the Empress is very much connected with Venus, so we have a connection to her there. And Yesod, which is linked to Malkuth, which is all about the physical realm, and it is also connected and can be drawn to an association with the root chakra. If we are to place the Tree of Life in connection with the chakras, the root chakra is associated with a drive to succeed in the physical world, and is also associated with our sexuality, the sexual energies and feelings often being centered around that area of the root chakra. And that's actually quite interesting from a perspective of manifestation, in that he could be seen to be practicing sexual energy transmutation, which is something that's seen in books such as Think and Grow Rich and various law of attraction-y type things. So he's basically redirecting his sexual energy and using his sexual energy to manifest his desires into the world. Now let's go down, as we usually do, to the bottom of the card and have a look at the symbols here. And so we can see that it has yet again another Hebrew alphabet character, and this one actually has the word Tsadi, Sade, which is defined as the word fish hook. And it's quite an interesting little symbol, because the word fishing, of course, can mean many different things with regards to a spiritual meaning. It can mean fishing around for knowledge, for example, or information, fishing into the unknown and not knowing what type of information you are going to bring back up. It can also simply be a metaphor for diving into that ocean of the divine, of spirituality, and bringing up and bringing therefore into oneself, if one was to consume the fish, a type of divine communion. And so this mastery over the material world can be seen all over the symbolism in the card. If we're to trace the shape of the Emperor's body, we can see it forms a triangle above a cross. This is the alchemical symbol of sulphur, which is a fiery element of the universe, and it's a very volatile and very material element. It's a very active element rather than a passive element, and therefore a very masculine element. And so the position of the Emperor on the card is expressing a masculinity in direct opposite to the Empress, of course, which is a femininity. Looking at his crown, you can see it has 4 separate points on there representing on the Tree of Life Chesed, and it also has on it jewels, and the jewels also have 4 faces to them. His crown is, of course, a popular symbol for the sun, and in fact you can actually see, if you look very closely, the actual sun light appears to be coming from behind him. And this is interesting because down at the bottom again we see the symbol for Aries on the other side of the name at the bottom, and of course the Emperor is astrologically connected with Aries, and Aries is connected with the sun. Everything joins up on these things, it's really quite incredible. Going back to tracing how the actual Emperor looks, if we just look at his leg area and up to his hands, you can trace the number 4 on there, which yet again brings us to Chesed, which is the 4th Sephiroth on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. And so it really does seem to be showing us Chesed on this card. Chesed could be almost seen to be the Emperor himself, you could almost say, especially when you look at the archetypal image of Chesed, which is pretty much what we're looking at on the card. Now you can also see in his hand that he's holding, just as the Rider-Waite card was, an orb, and this orb has above it, as was on the Empress card, a Maltese cross. It's in his left hand and it's held over his navel chakra. This represents creative energy, so it says that he is putting and forcing out creative energy into what represents the world. Just like before, again on the Empress, he has bees upon his actual clothes. The bees, as well as a companion to the Empress card, represent that busyness, the busyness of the world, industry. You know, the queen bee leading all the bees around with a great buzz of energy, and also a type of organisation. And of course the queen bee and things is also about an ordering, and so he's an emperor, so he's giving orders. He's a leader, and so the bees, all busying away and working away, are part of a grand order. Moving onwards, you can see quite clearly here a disc or a circular item, which has upon it a star, and the star has 16 points, and so this represents, going back just as we had before, to the element of sulphur, because this is the atomic number of sulphur, which is fascinating that they would go to that level. And the 16 is also in gematria the hook, like a fishing hook, which takes us back to the Sade Hebrew character which we had on the bottom of the actual card. Just like with the Empress card, we have the Fleur de Lis as well, which is a heraldic crest having its origins back in the French monarchy, and hereby obviously a symbol of heraldry. It represents the rulership and the dominions and things like that yet again. Now you can see horned rams on the card. These are obviously represent Aries, and you can also see a scepter with a ram's head on it, and it's fairly interesting here because if you look at the way that this is angled, it's almost as if it's receiving a light from higher up, so it's receiving light right from the right hand side of the card, and it's channeled down towards the actual shield. So yet again it's a drawing down of energy, and the sun being a masculine energy in this case. And the shield itself, as well as having within it the golden eagle with 2 heads, just like we had on the previous card, which here could be a symbol of almost like a phoenix. It has a red disc behind them, perhaps representing being sort of reborn in fire, a regeneration, a rebirth, or a birthing of one's manifestation. The shield also has the gold disc and the red disc, which to me is again the opposite to what we had with the Empress. The Empress had a white tincture, an alchemical and spiritual element of female sexuality, where this of course has the red tincture, which would be the male sexuality, or you could simply call it the sun for the red and the silver over on the Empress for the moon, if you wanted to just look at it like that. Over on the other side of the card we have a lamb, and the lamb is actually holding a flag. This is very interesting because of these are, of course, Thoth cards by Aleister Crowley. So the lamb, in its most basic terms, is the Lamb of God. It's the lamb was used as a sacrifice in the Old Testaments of the Bible, and Christians use the lamb as a symbol of the sacrifice of Christ for our sins. With regards to Aleister Crowley and Thelema, it represents the old age, what he would call the old Aeon of Osiris. And so basically you can say that it's an alchemical card, because we've seen that so many times. And Crowley's vision of alchemy was that the foundation of this new age, the new Aeon of Horus, is summed up by the symbols that you can see on this card, this drawing down of the energy into the shield, bringing a rebirth, and the rebirth into the new Aeon of Horus, the new world, the new age. The Emperor, therefore, is all about leadership, but leadership comes with responsibility and self-control. You can't just be a leader and go wild and do anything, because you're bringing down of energy, and therefore your manifesting of your energy has, obviously, things happen and you have to take responsibility for those things that happen. So he has to understand the importance of sacrifice for the greater good, and the sacrifice, if we're going back to the sexual energy, of course, would be a release of energy. And what happens when you release a sexual energy? It creates a new life, and you have to be responsible for that new life that actually comes out of that. And so if you bring up this Thoth Emperor in your tarot readings, it could mean that you have to show responsibility for other people. That maybe your family need you to be an emperor. You need to be the emperor in your home. It could simply mean that if you've got problems in your life, this card is saying, be an emperor over those problems. Take responsibility over them, break them down, work through them, and manifest what you want to come out of them. In the end, it's a card that can be it's very masculine, it's very strong, and it's basically saying that the mastery of these elements and these alchemical symbols and the mastery over the world manifests things. So be responsible for what you have manifested.